Art thou recording, my dude?
Art thou is.
Yawn perfect.
Hello, and welcome to the Interstate Gamers Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin, a.k.a. K-Slugs.
My name is Peter, a.k.a. Deal for Real, and I'm also your host.
Hell yeah, dude. We're back in action after a long holiday break, some time off, some time well spent together. We are back.
Together? Whatever do you mean?
Well, over the holiday break, Pete and I, we kind of mingled a little bit, got together, and I picked him up from the airport that he just so happened to be at, and we had a blast.
Yeah, this was the third annual Interstate Gamers meetup, although the first meetup since we actually became the Interstate Gamers. But yeah, I went on down to East Texas, had fun with so many people. Met up with Kev, met up with Chris, met up with Katie, met up with... I was practicing this because there's so many people that I met up with. Joe, Simon, Zach, Mallory, Ryan.
Yeah.
I think that covers it.
Yeah.
I think that's everybody.
Yeah, pretty much. You did meet like everybody. Oh, and my brother Casey.
Ah, yes. Much.
Yeah,
as we know him. But yeah, we had a ton of fun. We saw the sights. We partied a little bit. We played some Super Mario Party, some Super Smash Brothers, even some Excite Bike 64. I finally showed Kevin the magic of that game.
Yeah, that was a pretty cool game. I sucked, though.
Yeah, well, it's, to become a master at something like me, you have to put in at least 10 years. I believe Malcolm Gladwell said that once. Famous author Malcolm Gladwell. Anyway, we got some stuff to say. Kevin, I know you're good at announcements. Why don't you start us off?
Yeah, man. So we actually you and I kicked some ass in a Smash Bros. Tourney recently held by the Secret Levels podcast, and apparently they called us out, but looks like we had the last laugh.
Looks like we did indeed.
But yeah, the tourney is out on YouTube if you'd like to go check it out. Although it is solely from my perspective of the tourney, but that's okay. It's still kind of fun to check out. Pete and I meet up in grand finals, and you'll have to watch the video to see who wins.
That's true.
But yeah, it was pretty cool. It's a lot of fun. Hope we get to do that again.
Yeah.
Next, we have started a Patreon page. So we know like some of you like showing support through various means, and this is just another way where you can not only show support for our podcast, but it's also a good way for us to show some appreciation back and kind of consistently give you some cool benefits and perks, as well as like extra content that we have available for you guys. So it's really cool. Go check out the perks and benefits for that. I'm really excited to have that going. And I think at the end of every episode, we're just going to list out our Patreon subscribers. So stay tuned at the end of that for the realist of homies.
So, Kev, what's our young URL for our Patreon page?
Oh, right. Yes. So it's www.patreon.com/theigcast.
The IGcast.
Mm-hmm. And then last but certainly not least, I got engaged over Christmas.
What?
Yeah. And my fiance, my beautiful fiance, is here doing the episode with us today. Everyone say hello to Katie.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Katie.
Hey.
AKA Dave.
What's going on? Katie, a.k.a. Dave, S.K., a.k.a. Mrs. Soon-to-be K-Slugs.
Yeah.
Mrs. K-Slugs.
Mrs. K-Slugs. I like it. I do like it.
Alternatively, we could call Kevin Mr. Dave.
True.
Mr. Dave.
Mrs. Dave.
I kind of like Mr. That's a good one. But yeah, no, that's pretty exciting. We're both happy about it. But yeah, cool announcement there. And without further ado, she's going to do the game with us today because she played the game with me. So let's. What are we doing? What are we doing this episode, Pete?
Well, I'm here to tell you that.
Okay.
This game, I won't beat around the bush too much, but this game is quite possibly the quintessential indie game, and it is none other than Cave Story.
Ooh.
Well, specifically Cave Story Plus. The Plus.
Oh, true.
So some context for that, because it's a pretty interesting little timeline. So Cave Story was developed by one man named Daisuke Pixel Amaya, Pixel being his nickname, aka Studio Pixel is the name that he operated under. And he developed it over 5 years, and he released it in 2004 as a free PC game. And became a cult classic. People loved it for various reasons that we'll be talking about here soon. And I believe it was released as a WiiWare title in 2010. But after that, it was released again in 2011 by this company called Nicholas, who made an enhanced port of the game, basically, with updated graphics and updated soundtrack and some more content. And that port of the game became very popular, and it appeared on all these different platforms and continues to this day to be appearing on new platforms, such as the Switch, which you guys played it on, I assume.
You don't know that.
We did.
I think Kevin sent me a photo of the box after he bought it. So.
Hell yeah, I did.
I played it on the PC back in 2012, but I also played it on my brother's arcade machine that he built. It's got one of those crazy arcade emulators on it. And I can say it is pretty fun to play it on arcade sticks, or not stick, but on an actual arcade cabinet. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, this game is super popular, and it's stood the test of time. I would say it's a classic by this point. And since it was developed by the one guy, it is really like the indie game. Prior to Stardew Valley, which is the current big one-person indie game, there was Cave Story, and it's still really fun, I believe.
Yeah. Before we had played it, I didn't hear too much about it. And so then when I looked at picking up the game and where I should pick it up, I was like, okay, should I get it on Steam? Should I go and pick it up? I went to Best Buy because I knew after looking up all this stuff online that, well, one, I could take it back if I didn't like it and return it and all that stuff. But two, I had read online that the retail version comes with some goodies such as a mini CD soundtrack and a 50-page game manual. And it did come with that, and I had a lot of...
That was in fact correct.
It was in fact correct. And so I had fun looking through the manual, and I'm still looking for a way to play the mini CD because I'm really looking forward to that. But we listened to the soundtrack on the game itself, which was pretty cool. And we'll talk more about that. But yeah, that was pretty cool.
Before we get into the meat and potatoes, I do want to ask, I just learned 2 days ago that there is apparently a co-op mode now. Did you guys play that?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, we did.
Okay, cool. So you guys can tell me about that when it gets to gameplay, because I've never known about that or seen it, so that will be interesting. Just a little bit of exposition on the premise of the game before we get into it. So Cave Story is a Metroidvania game. It fits into that genre, and that genre, for people who don't know, describes a game that is influenced by the Metroid series and the Castlevania series, which both of them are kind of similar, which is why they get grouped into the term Metroidvania. But basically what it means is a world that is interconnected and kind of non-linear, and you can explore more of the world as you upgrade your abilities and defeat bosses and all that kind of stuff, much like Metroid and Castlevania. So this game is like that. The setting is that you are a robot who wakes up inside of a floating island in a cave, hence the name Cave Story. And you have to figure out over the course of the game who you are, why you're in this island, and the whole time you're crusading against this evil guy called the Doctor, who wants to use people on the island to take over the countries on the surface of the world. That's basically the plot in a nutshell. But yeah, it's, as we've said, a classic game, and I think we're ready to get to the gameplay. Do you guys agree?
Yeah.
Yeah. So many yeahs are going to be in this episode. I can feel it.
Boom diggity.
Boom diggity.
Well, cool. Yeah, I guess I'll start off on the gameplay. I thought the gameplay was done pretty well. I actually watched a YouTube video on it last night. It's some guy, and it was kind of funny. It just popped onto my recommended YouTube list, and it was like, oh, Cave Story Plus is actually... game design is done very well, or something like some title like that. And I was like, wow, I was kind of thinking the same thing, but it's good to know that somebody else made a YouTube video about it and that, it was recommended to me. So that the gameplay design's done very well. But I think one thing that it does a really good job of doing is it captures the attention of the players so well. and it like the player's intrigued by what's going on around them, and at the same time it uses that to help the player learn about the environment and how to play the game. For example, from the very beginning, you're like introduced to like most of the game's mechanics right away. Like there's water down below, there's like something you can open to get the shooter. You have to open anyway. There's basically a lot of mechanics that you can learn right from the get-go, and the game introduces that very well. And it's like a very natural progression that not only is just like easy to understand, but it like makes you curious about like what's going on. Like it's just so interactive, I think, and that's what the game did a really good job of.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of Mega Man X, another game that we've reviewed, obviously, where the intro level teaches you so many mechanics just naturally. Like there's no dialogue boxes saying press this to do this. It just kind of forces you into situations, and then you press buttons to eventually figure out what's going on. And it's possible that Pixel here did take a cue from that, or from other games that do the same thing. But I know that Mega Man X is kind of like the example we hear about a lot of games teaching you at the beginning how to get around and how to do everything. So the way that the combat works, this is, it's a game that blends platforming with shooting, but it's mainly shooting. That's kind of the emphasis. And it has a pretty unique mechanic in where your weapons will level up, but they're not permanent level ups. What happens is when you defeat enemies, they'll drop these little EXP or experience triangles. And when you collect enough for your current weapon, it'll level up to level 2. And if you collect enough again, it'll level up to level 3. And that's the cap. And if you take enough damage, then your gun will lose XP and level back down. So basically, you're trying to always have as much XP and have all your weapons as high level as you can. And by doing so, the weapons will be more powerful than they are at lower levels. And that mechanic, I think, is pretty interesting. I'm not sure I've played a game quite like that. And it rewards you for playing the game well, basically. But the game is never too harsh, really, when your weapons are at a lower level, except for maybe a boss or something. But it's not like I feel this tremendous pressure to have my weapons at a high level all the time. It's just something I naturally want to do as a player. And the game makes it pretty easy to do that, but not too easy. So I think it's a really well-executed mechanic and well thought of.
Yeah, I agree. I would say that I've seen similar mechanics to the weapon system where, like, you could upgrade your weapon and, like, that's how you get stronger as a character. But none of them, like, you don't ever lose that, like, upgrade normally. So, I think it's a really good mechanic in that, if when you get hit, it's not detrimental in just only the fact that you're losing health. Like, you're also losing, EXP for that weapon, and you want to keep that weapon's ability up. So like, and you kind of like strategize like, okay, I need to keep this level 3. I mean, ideally you want level 3 on everything, but like if you're like level 2 on something, you're like, oh, like I really need to get that back up to level 3. So I really like that mechanic because it makes you like look out for that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Katie, I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit about what the co-op experience was like. Like, are two of you on the screen at the same time always? And like, does the camera kind of move around you two? And how does that work?
Yeah, so Kevin played like the player 1 and I was player 2, which was kind of cute because you can like change the skin. Like, this is totally not at all, but you can like change your skin, like make yourself look like a different character kind of.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Yeah. And so like as the game progresses, you like unlock different characters that you've met up with. So like at one point, I think we unlocked like a Sue skin, so I can like dress up like Sue and look like she's a very pivotal character in the game. So that was kind of cool. Or like Santa. Yeah. Or so that was kind of cool. So that was the first big thing about the co-op that I really liked, because I mean you can look different from each other, which makes it really a lot better, because there's some points where things get so hectic that we both kept being like, where am I? Which one man am I? Like even I just had mine kind of like slightly changed to a different color at one point. We were like, which one's me? Like, so, but I think honestly it made it a little easier. Like if I were to play this game by myself, I would probably not have gotten through it as fast as Kevin and I did. I think it took us like 2 nights to play it. Mm-hmm. But honestly, I would have probably at some point just gotten lost and been like, wow, I really have no idea what I'm supposed to do at this point. So I'm done with this game. Like,
yeah.
But yeah, so the camera for the most part, like if I were to stray off, like it would just kind of keep it on player 1. And then if Kevin got like too far ahead and I got too far behind, it would just like teleport me back up to where Kevin was. So I didn't like die or anything from getting left behind.
Yeah.
Okay, so like focus on player 1 mainly, but player 2 wasn't like cast off to the side really.
Right. It was very similar to Donkey Kong Country.
Yeah.
That's cool. I'm gonna have to try that sometime. Do you guys know if you can play it online?
Ooh, I don't know.
I don't think so.
I'd be a little surprised. I'd be impressed, but a little surprised if you could do that.
Yeah, that'd be pretty impressive. But I don't think so. I think it's just local. But either way, it's really fun to. And another interesting feature is that she can drop out at any point. You don't have to like exit out of the game entirely.
Oh, neat.
I can drop her. So there's one section in the entire game where she had to drop out because it was a part where I had to just run as fast as I could and like things would fall behind me. And so if we didn't run at the same time, one of us would die. So
yeah,
it only made sense for her to drop out of that one.
And that's the thing too. So if one of us died, it was like we had to start completely back over. Like there's no way to like revive your like player 2 or player 1. Like it's just you're done and you got to go back to the save state. So that's kind of different.
Yeah, I always kind of get frustrated in games like that where when one of you dies, both of you lose right away. Yeah, because some games they have like separate live pools or whatever. But it's always interesting to see in general how different games do the whole co-op thing. I had no idea how Cave Story would handle it, and I was wondering too if the game would adjust the difficulty somehow to count for the 2 players. But it sounds like it doesn't. If it's just drop in, drop out co-op, then it probably just is the same game. Which I think is cool. There's no need to like complicate things necessarily. That kind of brings me to one of my other points, which is that I feel the difficulty of the game is really solid. It's I wrote down it's harder than Kirby but easier than Mega Man, which I feel like is a pretty good spot for a game like this to be in. I would say it's probably harder than Metroid in terms of like execution and like having to be good at the game. Because I feel like most of the time when Metroid is hard, it's because you're lost.
Yeah.
Whereas in Cave Story, I think most of the time when it's hard is because like the boss is really tough. And not like Metroid doesn't have tough bosses, but Cave Story I think is a little bit more of like a raw challenge. But I don't think, and you guys can of course speak up if your experience was different. But the first time I played, I don't think I used guides very much, if at all. And I'd never really felt like too frustrated. There were some bosses, of course, I had to try multiple times, but it wasn't like in Mega Man where if you don't know weaknesses, you're kind of screwed, you know?
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty nice. It's not an intimidating game, I don't think, which is good because it's a kind of a short game. So if someone were to quit like partway through, it'd be kind of like that much more, oh no, like you're so close to being done. So yeah, I think it's good how it keeps it like that.
Yeah, I kind of agree. The difficulty for me, I thought the game was actually pretty difficult. We played on the easiest difficulty, and I don't even think adding another player made it any harder or any less difficult. It was just kind of like another player was there along with you for the journey. It kind of made some things easier, but I wouldn't say they were easier. They were more convenient. Like I could do one action, and then she could do another action, and then like it could just kind of be like bang bang, and then
bang bang.
So that was kind of nice. But I mean, if we were to kick the difficulty up, I have a feeling it would be pretty hard. And I feel like the developer had a lot of freedom with that. And like, I don't know, because Nintendo games tend to be kind of on the easier side so that like everybody can enjoy them. That's not always the case. But since the developer's not like, mainstream Nintendo, I guess he kind of had a little bit of freedom to make it a little more difficult. I know he probably didn't want it to be too difficult, but I think he did a good job of balancing the difficulty with the enjoyment and then also not getting the player lost. I feel like that's what he did really well with, like, just making it so, like, the natural progression of the game is done really well. Like, you're never, like, questioning what you should do. It's just kind of, like, easy to kind of go along and figure out what to do. Although I will say we did encounter a glitch, I think, when collecting the dogs on like the sand level.
Yeah, that was weird.
We tried to pick up, like, we got 4 dogs and there's supposed to be like 5 or something like that. And we're looking forever for this one dog. And I looked online and some dude found a dog in another place and we went there and the dog wasn't there. But we actually looked it up. It was all the way back at the beginning, which we had already been and tried to get the very first dog, but he wouldn't come with us.
He just kept barking at us. Like, there was no option for me to pick him up.
Yeah, so we, like, went to and from there, like, 2 or 3 times, and finally, on, like, the last try, we finally got him. I don't know what it was.
I'm not sure I'm familiar with that, but that's pretty unfortunate.
Yeah, that part was a little confusing, but other than that, the game was, like, it was really, like, smooth, just going through the game. Like, we knew what we were supposed to do. Like, it was pretty easy.
Well, and we picked up pretty quickly, too, because there's all these, so the characters, I guess, that are in this little island are bunny-looking creatures called Mimigas, I guess. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly or not, but that's how
Mimiga.
Oh.
Mimiga.
Mimiga.
So we kind of figured out fairly quickly on, like, you have to talk to every single person. Not every single person, but you have to talk to the majority of the people that you come across, because they start telling you, like, oh, this happened. So you're like, oh, maybe it's a good idea for me to check that out. Like,
yeah.
So that was, I don't know, kind of cool. I figured that we picked that up pretty quickly.
It's kind of like a Zelda in that regard, or many other RPGs, I guess.
Yeah.
Where talking to people suddenly becomes very important. When you guys were playing, well, I'll start off with another point, which will segue into this question. So one of the defining features of this game is that there are certain moments where you can take an action that will change the ending you receive in the game. Basically, there are 3 endings. There's a bad ending, which the game will, like, let you retry. When you get the bad ending, basically it's you, like, being a coward and deciding not to fight the final boss. But if you do that, then the game reloads you back, so you don't have to, like, live with your regret or anything. And then there's, like, the normal ending, which is the good ending, and then there's the true ending, which I don't want to spoil here, because we don't really need to, like, give away all the details of the story to review the game. So I feel like I kind of want to do, like, spoil-free kind of.
Yeah.
But in order to get the true ending, it's something that I don't think I would have ever figured out without someone else telling me how to do it. I had to look it up after my first playthrough. And there's a bunch of steps that you can do to get the true ending. And if you do most of the steps, but not all of them, then you won't get a better ending. You'll just get the normal one, but you will have, like, more items or more tools or whatever. So basically, you can get a booster item kind of halfway through the game. And if you're on the track to the normal ending, you'll get a booster V, like 0.6 or something, which is kind of just like a little jetpack. And you can just kind of float up in the air with it. But if you're on the track to get the true ending, then you'll get the booster V2, which allows you to jet upwards, downwards, leftwards, and rightwards, which, like, really increases your mobility and makes the game, like, way more fun. My second playthrough, I was using the booster V2, and it just lets you dart around, and, like, the game is kind of floaty besides this, which is neither good nor bad. It's just a matter of taste. But having this booster item just really, like, it felt like the game just totally opened up, and it became a lot more fun and more fast and more, like, twitchy almost. Like, oh, I'm going to jump over here and shoot this guy and go over here and, like, all this sort of stuff. So if it sounds like you guys didn't get that on your playthrough.
No.
Well,
Okay.
We got the 0.6 or 0.8
no,
or whatever
it's 0.8.
it was.
It was like 0.85 or something weird.
Oh, okay. Well, you guys can, if you want to, you can do another playthrough of this game and maybe look up how to do the true ending, because it is a lot of fun, and it's difficult too. There's, like, a whole new section at the end of the game with the true ending, which is the most I'm going to say about it. But it's, the game rewards multiple playthroughs, and it rewards you using your experience from the first run to do a second run and, like, getting all the little Easter eggs that lead you to the true ending. So I would personally recommend it, especially if it only took you guys, like, 2 days to beat it.
Yeah.
If at some point you feel like picking it up again, I would definitely recommend it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I definitely think I'm going to pick it back up again. I was actually telling her, I was like, yeah, I know that since there's multiple endings, like, I want to go back and try to get the other endings, because the ending, I will say the ending was, like, the difficulty spike was a little bit, like, too much, I thought, in my opinion. Like, you just went from, the game was moderately difficult the whole way through to, like, okay, you better hold on to your health and hold on to this because you're going to need it in the end. Like, you'd never really experienced any of that before, and all of a sudden you need to hold on to all of that stuff. And I won't say why, but yeah, I didn't really enjoy that part, although I did feel satisfied when we finally beat everything. It's like, oh my gosh, that was intense. I was like, we were both like, there better not be another part.
Well, if you do the true ending, then there will be. So you have that to look forward to.
Uh-oh. Maybe we shouldn't.
At the very least, you'll need to look it up because it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And there's also a lot of story element that comes into the ending, which we'll talk about when we get to content. But it's really satisfying, I think.
You mentioned the floatiness of the game, and I kind of had this thought. It feels like Joust when you're moving around a little bit.
Like the old arcade game?
Yeah. At least with jumping, the floatiness.
I could see that. I was thinking of it as like Super Metroid, but more floaty.
Yeah.
Because Super Metroid is like the floaty Metroid game, so to speak. And then again, I was just thinking in terms of Metroid because it's a Metroidvania, and the word was in my head. You know what I mean?
But you kind of like jump as like out and you just kind of float, and it's just kind of interesting as long as you hold the A button, which is exactly how Joust works when you're jumping. Joust is a little bit different with your movement and that, like when you're running and stuff like that, or you're tapping A and you can like float and float and float. But if you're just like wanting to do one big jump, it's very similar to Joust, I thought.
Yeah. There's one more gameplay point I'm going to make, which is that towards the end of the game, there's a section where you kind of have to like sneak around and basically you're infiltrating like an enemy base, so to speak. Again, not trying to spoil anything too much. But basically the game has you pretending to be like an enemy and walking around and kind of doing errands so that you can enter the final boss's lair. And I found that to be a pretty big like break from the pace of the game, because by that point I'm like good at the game and I'm like, oh, I want to, do some platforming and do some shooting and stuff. And like, oh, the final boss is almost here. I'm so hyped. But instead like of continuing the momentum that the game had prior, it just kind of forces you to run around and like collect things and do like sneaky stuff. And it doesn't take too long. It's not like a huge, arduous part of the game, but it's enough to me that it felt like a misstep. And while it is important for plot reasons, I'm wondering if there's a way around that, so you didn't have to like do a little tedious, like uncool Metal Gear Solid section. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's really my only like real critique about gameplay. And again, it's limited to one pretty short part of the game, so it's not like a huge mark in my book.
Yeah, I can agree with that. One critique that I had is that the challenge mode, I don't know if you got around to doing that. I have no idea what that does because it didn't seem too substantial. But yeah, we tried that out and it just didn't pique our interest after beating the game. We were like, okay, well, bye.
Yeah, and I guess we'll talk about this more again in the content section, but one thing that Cave Story Plus did as an enhanced port was add a bunch of new little challenge modes. But there's like 3 or 4 or 5 little mini games where like, oh, in this game you have to use a certain gun, which is like an unconventional gun, and you have to use that for this little like obstacle course. They're basically like obstacle courses with different themes is what it is.
Yeah.
And I don't think they add anything too substantial to any category of the game. It does like pad out the content a little bit, and I appreciate them for what they are, but they're not really compelling, I don't think.
Yeah.
But they're kind of there to say like, oh, this was a port, an enhanced port, so here's like some enhanced content. I do think, to be fair, one of the sections is based on a scrapped portion of the original game.
Ooh.
One of the mini games is, so that's kind of neat.
That is kind of neat.
But other than that, they're pretty like take it or leave it.
Yeah, we only unlocked one level, so we were just kind of like, okay, well, this level kind of sucks. So yeah, I do kind of wonder with all like the movement and stuff, like how the speed runs look for this game. I feel like they would be pretty fun because there's a lot of different movement options you can do, like with shooting the level 3 machine gun downward, how you can like go up, like all the way up.
Yeah.
I think it'd be really fun to watch like someone just go around on that and then like use that booster that you were talking about at the same time.
Ooh, that reminds me. Another thing I want to mention real quick is one of my favorite parts of this game is how you can like there are several points where you can trade in your weapons for a different weapon, but it's not always like obvious that you're going to want to trade a weapon later on. So basically there's like 3 or 4 different points where you can exchange your very first weapon for something else, or exchange your like 3rd weapon for a new weapon. But they're permanent changes, and for the most part, you can't change it back. So it's another thing that I enjoy about the game rewarding multiple playthroughs, because you can try out these different guns on different playthroughs and see which one you like the most, or which one you think is the best, or etc. And I think that's a really fun little touch.
I agree. Yeah, I actually really like that too.
Me too.
All right. Well, that does it for me on gameplay.
That's it for us.
Yeah.
That's it for us.
Cool. So, why don't we just all go ahead and give our ratings?
Cool. Well, I gave gameplay a 93.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Ooh. All right. I gave it a 90.
90.
90.
Well, you know what they say. Male minds think alike, because I also gave it a 90.
Ooh. Nice. I like it. I like it.
All right. Time for everyone's favorite section.
Aesthetics.
Aesthetics.
Sounded like a snake.
I speak parcel tongue.
Cool. Well, visuals. Young people. Let's start. Let's hear. Blah. Let's hear what you have to say.
Well, I hope I can say it better than that.
I hope you can too.
So the original Cave Story. Well, I mean, the original and the Plus have similar aesthetics, but the Plus basically made them higher resolution because the original aesthetics were fairly coarse pixel art, and it looked good. And the larger objects definitely had enough detail, but some of the smaller objects, like the player character and certain enemies, were like a little blocky. But hey, that was the aesthetic, and I'm sure Pixel decided on that because A, his name was Pixel, and B, because he was just one guy and maybe he didn't want to slave over the graphics for too long. But Cave Story Plus, which is the version that we're reviewing here, I think it's got a really beautiful art style. They took the pixel art from the original games, and when necessary, they made things higher resolution to better fit like the official artwork so that the characters looked more like themselves. And the environments are more detailed, and I think that was a good thing, especially because some of the character designs are really creative, I believe, and having the higher pixel density really lets them shine. Some of the characters, like the little bug enemies in the labyrinth called the Gaudi, I believe is their name, I think they're really cool, and they're just one example of like random enemy designs that I really enjoy. So I think that the visuals are generally really strong.
Yeah. So for me, I thought that the visuals, they did do a pretty good job of what they needed to do. They used a lot of like tile-based graphics, at least when you're like going in the different levels, you could see like the repeated tiles over and over again. And a lot of pixel art and stuff like that, like you'd already mentioned. I would say towards the beginning and kind of the middle of the game, I wasn't like overly impressed with the visuals. It kind of just seemed like if I didn't know any better, I was playing a game on the SNES, which is kind of cool in this own right. And I think that's kind of the feel that they were going for, but I wasn't necessarily blown away by them. Like when I think of like Stardew Valley, I think, this is a pixel art game, but like this looks amazing. Like there's a lot of like modern day enhancements to pixel art that just kind of makes, since this game is technically in modern day era. And I mean, it's been 14 years, right? Well, I guess the remastered version and all that. But anyway,
I see what you're saying. There's like pixel art is not just one thing. Like you can do it really well, or you can do it not quite so well. So you're saying that Stardew Valley, as an example, is very impressive to you in terms of pixel art, but this game is more like just good.
Yeah,
not quite so mind blowing.
I think it's solid, and especially the upgrades were really needed. But overall, I would say it's pretty like it doesn't like astound me. But yeah, basically what you said.
I don't know. I kind of feel like, so I really liked like the pixel feel to it, just because I am like a huge like Super Mario Brothers fan, and like I just like the tiles and the blocky type looking stuff. And it's almost like you kind of forget. I don't know, at least for me, like you're going through the game, like kind of playing, and like you see the stuff, but you're kind of moving so fast through everything that it's not really like you're stopping to look at anything. So I'm kind of like, you're so busy in the game that it's like you can't really spend too much time just like looking at the graphics. Like it just kind of became like another thing in the game.
True.
You know what I mean?
Actually, it's a good time for you to bring that up, because that is a big difference between this game and, for example, Stardew Valley. Because in Stardew, you're often like taking your sweet time doing something. It's not an action game, is my point.
Yeah.
So, and I don't think, like, Katie, I don't think what you're saying is like an excuse for a game to have bad graphics. I mean, I'm not saying that this game has bad graphics, but it's not as pretty as Stardew Valley. And I don't think we can argue against that. But it's true. Like, the needs of the game visually were different than a game like Stardew's would have been. So I think what Katie said makes a lot of sense, and I agree.
Yeah, I do too. It's a good point.
Did you all notice in the options section that you can toggle between old and new graphics?
Yes, we did. We spent a good time on the
music,
the options menu.
You can go back and forth between like different versions of the songs and stuff, which we'll get to in a second. But.
Yeah. Talk about the skins. So we already talked about the skins a little bit that she liked for player 2. I'm kind of upset that you can't change the skin for player 1 as well. But at least I tried and I couldn't get a different skin. But she could switch the skin to like so many different characters that we could unlock along the way, which is pretty cool. I just wanted to be a new skin.
Yeah, well, you're the main player character, so you have to stick with a boring old default. Actually, I believe that your skin changes based on the difficulty that you're playing.
Oh, I was wondering why I was yellow.
Yeah. One visual part of the game I loved is the character portraits for all the dialogue. All of the pivotal characters, or all the central characters, have portraits with different expressions. And again, like Stardew Valley, seeing a lot of connections here. Probably because I've been playing Stardew obsessively lately. But it does really great touch, and I don't think you see that too often in an action game like this,
Yeah.
So it was kind of like a nice little surprise the first time I popped it in. Like, oh, everyone has their portraits. This is cool.
Yeah, usually you see that in games that, like Earthbound, which is like turn-based, or I guess Earthbound doesn't do animations, but don't they do like character boxes?
It's been a long time, so I can't actually speak for Earthbound, but more RPG type games.
Yeah. So it is. I do really like that. Yeah.
My last visual point is it's one that I talk about on every game, but it's the environments and how they look and how much variety there is. So the game is called Cave Story, and 99% of the game takes place in the caves, which are inside of the island. So bada bing, bada boom.
Yeah.
But and I don't think the variety of the game is too or the visual variety of the environments. It doesn't blow me away, but there is a good amount of variety. There's themed areas like the desert, the grasslands, the labyrinth, the research lab, and at risk of spoiling a minor part of the game, you can actually go on the outer wall of the island, or even like on the surface of the island, which is a really cool break from all the cave stuff. Kind of akin to Metroid when you go to the surface of the planet. It's kind of like that. Not to be beating the Metroid horse here, but got Metroid on the brain.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that for me, the part of the visuals that was most impressive or made that connected with me the most would be the characters and the portraits and the enemy designs rather than like the place itself.
Yeah. Well, I did. Yeah, I really liked the environments, honestly. With all the variety that they were, it was kind of like, I don't know, you felt like you were in like a completely different area, but you weren't. You were still on the island, and it was just, I don't know. Each level had its own feel. Like, they did a really good job of that. And I think each level had its own enemies. So it was kind of just like, it really did a good job of visually putting you in different places.
Yeah. And it did so while avoiding all of the cliches like, oh, here's there is a water area, but a lot of games like this have a fire area or lava area, and then they have the ice area, and then there's some like electric themed area. And in this game, they did more with less by like not having any of those crazy cliche type of areas, which wouldn't have made sense in the floating island, really. So
yeah, it's
cool that they worked within the confines of that and still had all this nice variety.
Yeah, suck it, Mega Man.
Oof.
Yeah.
now Mega Man, that's another game with amazing pixel art. Mega Man X.
Yeah, true.
Very, 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 very well done. That's it for me. You guys got anything else to add?
That's it for us, too.
Yeah.
Well, my score for visuals is a 90.
Ooh, I gave it an 83.
And Dave gave it an 82.
Cool. I think it's very vindicative of how we felt about the visuals.
I think so too. I always try to have my scores be indicative of my feelings. That's a new thing that I've been trying out.
Right.
Pretty well. Katie, do you want to start us off on the audio?
Oh my gosh, I would love to start us off on the audio. Okay, so my very first note that I have under audio is literally in all cap and red, and it just says love, because I loved the music throughout this entire game. Like, I think that was probably my favorite part. Like, I know each little level had its own little song and like own little tune. And even when you went to go to like the little save state rooms, it had its own little special tune that it would play. And some of the music, even just like the opening theme, you like start the game up and it's just this like bumping, this like happy, like, okay, I'm ready to play this freaking game, because it was just so, oh my gosh, I loved it. So that's how I feel about my first point on audio.
She loves it. Love.
Nice. Love.
Yeah, when we first started up the game, she like, oh, I love this music.
Yes. We've been like dancing around for the past like 2 days to this music.
Yeah.
It's a good thing that you got that baller mini CD.
Yeah.
I don't know where to play it, but yes, we did.
I believe you can buy adapters to fit it into a larger or standard size CD, and then you could slip that into your car and bump it.
Ooh, okay, cool. Thanks, Pete. I needed that.
Yeah, I just learned that the other day, so I was doing research.
Oh, cool. One thing that I liked was that you can like play it in different styles, and they have every track in like all these different styles. I think my favorite like style is the Famitrack one. I thought that was pretty bumping.
So I don't believe that the version of the game I played has that option. Again, you can toggle this on the options screen, which I suggest everyone should always look at options screens, because you never know what you can find in there. But for me, I had 3 options. There was the original soundtrack, which is like pretty 8-bit-ish. There was the quote-unquote new soundtrack, which I believe was what they did for the 2010 WiiWare release, I think. A little fuzzy on that. And then I had the quote-unquote remastered one, which was more like the OG soundtrack, but with more modern like instrumentation and synthesizers and stuff. So I didn't have a Famitrack option.
Really?
Yeah, so maybe that's a new thing.
Dude, so you didn't have the Ridiculon one?
Ridiculon?
Oh my gosh, that was the bumpin' one.
They play it in like
it's like heavy metal.
It's like it's synthesized like electric guitar. It's like
oh man, I'm gonna have to buy the freaking Switch port for this, because I'm missing out. I'm missing out on 50-page manual and a mini disc and Ridiculon. I mean, how cool is that?
Yeah, I'll have to send you a video of it playing the Ridiculon stuff. But yeah, it was really cool.
I was headbanging.
Hey, maybe with some Patreon money, I could snag myself a copy of the game that we've already reviewed. So actually, maybe not. Yeah, but so the point is, there's like 7 million different soundtracks for you to choose from, whatever floats your boat. I agree with Katie. I love the music in this game. I think it's one of the high points. The upbeat tunes are all catchy. The slower and darker tunes are brooding and just set the mood so well for the parts of the game they appear in. And also, you'll find a lot of tributes to the soundtrack online. There are people who have made like remix albums of the soundtrack. So if that's something you guys are interested in, definitely do some Googling, because you can find that. My only qualm with the audio is that I found the sound effects themselves to be fairly generic. Kevin, I know this is kind of your forte, but I'm just going to preface whatever you say by saying that I found them just a little lackluster, kind of generic, like 8-bit-ish sort of sounds. Nothing too distinctive that I remember, but you might remember something since you played the game more recently than I have. What do you think about that?
Dude, I actually agree with you. I thought the sounds of the game were just okay. They went with the more retro style in terms of just like the blips and the bloops and the rumbles. But that does fit the style of the game, and it's kind of charming in its own way. It kind of brings me back to an older time, but at the same time, it's just kind of like, they did really well in the soundtrack, so I'm okay with the sound effects, I guess, not being as prolific, I guess you'd call it, but it would have been better if they were.
You know what game had amazing sound effects?
Banjo.
I was going to say Stardew Valley, but yes. Also.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was going to say Stardew.
Yeah, sound effects, probably the weakest point of this game, which is funny because I think some of the strongest and weakest points are in this very same category. But yeah, definitely a bumping soundtrack, and if anyone were to have the cliff notes of the audio section for this game review, I think it would just be bumping ass soundtrack.
Yeah.
So there we go. KD tested, Kev tested, Pete tested, Mother approved.
Boom diggity.
Boom diggity.
Well, cool. I think that kind of wraps it up for the audio for us, right?
That's it for me.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think the only last thing I did want to say about the audio, it's very, it puts you into the game. Like, as you're listening to it, it kind of, it just pulls you in, and then you're kind of I don't know. I think that's kind of cool. I like when that happens in a game where the music's just so good. And honestly, too, I thought, the little sounds, the bleeps and the bloops were kind of fun.
Yeah.
But I don't know, it pulls you in. It makes you feel like you're actually in the game.
The one part of the game that I found myself disagreeing with that idea, Katie, was one of the later areas of the game where they actually reuse the title music.
Oh.
Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
I really liked that part, actually.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I love this song.
Well, I mean, I could see it both ways where, if you're bumping on the title screen and then you get to that part of the game and you're like, oh shit, here's that song again, I love it. Then, that's cool, but for me, it was, kind of jarring. The first time I was like, oh shoot, what, is this a glitch? Or, because, I've never heard that before.
Yeah, I can understand that, because I kind of had that same thought, but I was like, I like this song enough, I'm just going to let it slide.
Yeah, it did seem kind of random, but I think what I want to say they were trying to go for was this song that we're playing on the main title, it actually is implemented somewhere. This is a substantial part of the game. But I don't know.
Yeah, it's trying to circle back and wrap the whole thing in a little bow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I get it now.
Yeah. But anywho, let's all give our ratings. Katie, what did you have for the audio?
I gave audio a 94.
I gave it a 92.
I gave it an 85.
Ooh. I like the variance we got going on here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel a little bad compared to you guys' scores, but yeah, the sound effects brought it down a bit for me, maybe a little more than they should have. I don't know. I don't have to sit here and justify my 85 to the likes of you. Well, I guess I do, because here I am. But anyway.
Yeah, we've been embarrassingly dancing to it, so maybe that's the reason for our score. But moving on to everyone's second favorite, or maybe your complete favorite section, content.
Let's talk about that content.
Let's talk about this flippin' content.
So, I will wrap us up on the content section, or I'll start us off, actually. I'm not wrapping.
The opposite of the thing you just said.
Exactly. I thought the content of this game was absolutely stellar.
Oh, damn.
As mentioned previously, the game's natural curiosity encouraged you to explore and find out different things about the world you were in. So the entire game was just so interactive in this world that is completely new to me because I've never played the game before. And I'm just wandering around, and it has this natural progression. I'm just like, oh yeah, and you can do things differently. And you have all these choices. You can upgrade your weapons or at different, obviously it's real time when you upgrade your weapons, but I mean, it was still really cool. The pace of the game was very nice. Wasn't too fast, wasn't too slow. Even the story I thought was done really well. It wasn't a very kiddie story. It was it had some mature themes in it. The very, very sad moment of when one of my favorite characters,
Whoa. Spoiler alert.
Sorry for the spoilers. Nobody... Pete can edit a spoiler incoming. Or you could like bleep that out entirely. When and
then you're like, ooh.
Oh, that would be good. But yeah, no, just some really dark themes, and I kind of like that in video games, and I thought it was really, really awesome. I loved the content of the game. What can I say?
Katie, do you concur?
Okay, well, yeah, I agree on that. I think there was definitely a lot to the game, but it wasn't too much that it was just overwhelming. But I think that there is definitely enough to do, and it didn't keep you, or it kept you interested, because you did, like you said, you have that natural curiosity of what's coming next, or what's going to happen if I go this way, or what really intrigued me was the storyline. Like, throughout the entire game, like, there was just these little side things that would pop up, and you'd see somebody talking to somebody else, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I bet this is what's going on. I was never right, but I had, like, all these, like, thoughts in my head. I was like, oh my gosh, I bet this is what's happening, or this is why this is happening, or, so that's very, very fun. It kept you interested. You weren't ever bored. Probably my favorite thing, though, is that there's, like, these little side quests, like, in each level. Like, you'd have to go help somebody find a key, or you'd have to go get something from a specific enemy to do a specific thing.
The dogs.
Or, as my absolute favorite part, is you're finding these puppy dogs that this lady has lost in, I don't even remember what the level is. Oh, it's in, like, the sand area.
It's in sand level, yeah.
She's lost her 5 dogs, and you have to go pick them up and, like, take them back to her. And what I love so much about it is you get in front of this dog and you, like, go to talk to it, and it's like, arf! And it's like, take the dog with you. And you straight up just put this dog on your back, like piggyback style. And this dog's just walking around with you, like, on your back. So that was pretty fun.
And meanwhile, there are, like, reanimated skeletons and giant parrots attacking you.
There's, like, these enemies still. I was like, it's okay, puppies. We're going to get you back. Like,
You know, I'm realizing that section really did give a new definition to the idea of a fetch quest.
Yeah.
Bada bing, bada boom.
Good one. Yeah, you could also do, like, multiple dogs, too.
yeah, apparently that's a thing. I don't know if this is, like, absolutely true or not.
You had 2 dogs on your head.
No, but apparently that's a thing that, like, the Switch version can only do.
Oh.
So apparently in other versions you have to get them one by one, which, I mean, in our case we were playing the 2-player, so at least we'd be able to take 2 at a time. But I was able to pick up 2 dogs at once, so I had, like, a dog on my back with a dog on its back. So that was just kind of a fun, like, funny part of the game, I guess. I don't know. I really liked that.
Yeah, well, if the Switch version made it more convenient in any way, then I appreciate that, because I did find that section to be a little tedious, along with the other, like, Metal Gear Solid, very big, quote, very big, unquote, section that I was talking about earlier. But anyway, enough about dog story. Let's get back to cave story. Yeah, so I agree with pretty much everything you guys have said, so I'm not going to beat a dead horse too much. I did like how the plot was, like, executed in the game. I think the plot is interesting on its own, but the way that it's executed I found really effective, and it was never overbearing. Like, there are games you play that have a really cool plot, but then characters will talk about it at, like, inopportune moments, or it'll be, like, too complicated, and the game will throw you all the info at once. And then there are games where there's, like, too little plot, and in moments where the gameplay suffers, the plot's not enough to keep you going. But this game, I found it was really excellent, and like you guys were saying, you know, you would see glimpses of other characters, or characters would tell you things directly, but in kind of cryptic enough ways to keep you interested and not spoil the whole thing right away. So I found that really good. And yeah, I agree with Kevin about the darker, more intense themes being really interesting as well. Kind of a contrast to, like, all the cute characters you meet at the beginning and the happy music and all that stuff. But it's a good contrast, I think.
Yeah. Honestly, if you're looking for a game, like, if you're curious about this game and you were wondering if it had a good story, then if that's something you're looking for, well, I'm here to tell you that it does. So if you're wanting to play this game, definitely do it, because I really enjoy the story.
Agreed.
I said this before, but I'll say it again. The game is fairly short, but it's not too short. You know, I think my only problem with this being an indie game is that I do wish it were longer, because like I would love to have more areas to explore and all this other stuff. But with the understanding that it was like a one-person project, I think that the game's length is like certainly reasonable. You know, like I wouldn't be breathing down this guy's back like, make more levels. You know, like dude did enough. Dude made cool pixel art. He made great gameplay. He wrote a cool story. He made a bomb-ass, dank-ass soundtrack.
Yeah.
And like, you know, but in a perfect world, I would like the game to be longer. But at least it's digestible. And as I've said, it rewards multiple playthroughs. You know, you can try different weapons each time, or you can either figure out because you're a genius, or you can look up because you're a normal person how to get the true ending and do that. And the true ending, I do want to talk about it just a little bit without spoiling it. But I kind of said this in gameplay, I think, but it really does, like, it adds a new and very difficult and fun section to the end of the game, and also explains a whole new section of the plot that isn't really covered in depth in the rest of the game. And like the combination of the hard gameplay with this new like intense and even darker story, like it's even darker than the rest of the story that you've seen up to that point. And it's just a really strong way to wrap up the game. And again, you guys should either try it yourselves or look it up on YouTube and see a playthrough or something. But yeah, I really enjoy it. You know, I actually increased my content score while we were talking about it.
That happens.
Yeah, I brought it up. I just brought it up by one notch on the Peter scale, and you guys will see where that notch did when we wrap up this section.
Cool.
The last point that I have is, again, kind of talking about the added content for the Cave Story Plus version, so the little mini games and stuff. Again, not all that vital. I don't really feel the need to talk about them very much because A, because we already did a little bit, and B, because they're not really that important. I think that if those extra modes had some more substance, then I would give an even better content score than I'm about to. But, you know, you don't buy the game for that reason. You buy the game to play the main story, which is as good as it was 15 years ago. So,
yeah,
there you have it.
Cool. Did you actually do a normal playthrough and then go and do? Yeah, you had mentioned that you did a normal playthrough and then did the extra ending.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I was just curious about that, but I've said about it all, but the replayability is something I really think is something that can't be overlooked here, because it's like you can do multiple playthroughs, as we've already discussed. I think the manual even mentions different endings, because there's like a spoiler section in the manual.
Oh, really?
And before, like, while I was looking through the manual, it's like, spoilers, don't look here if you haven't beaten the game, yada, yada. I was like, okay, well, I can't look through here. But I kind of want to look at it now and see what it mentions about multiple endings and all that kind of stuff. But, yeah, man, like, I would play this game multiple times. I'm really satisfied with my purchase. If you're like on the fence about getting this, I'd say go ahead and get it. If you like these style of games, if you like Metroidvanias, definitely go ahead and pull the trigger.
I think if you're a person who's at all interested in indie games specifically, like no matter what genre, you have to play this game. Like as I said at the very beginning, this is like, as far as I know, the quintessential indie game, and has been for 15 years.
Yeah.
So
I'm glad to have it on my video game collection, basically.
Plus, I believe it's cheaper than a AAA game, isn't it? Like $30 or something.
Actually, we're talking about it right now. It is on sale for I think they bumped the price down after we had both looked at it to $19.99.
Okay.
I got it at Best Buy for $20.
Oh, so it's for physical as well, not just.
Yeah, for physical.
Oh.
So on the eShop it's $30, but you get more stuff with the physical, and it's only $20.
Dang, maybe I should probably go to my local Best Buy like tomorrow. There's one like a 3-minute drive away from my house, so I should probably do that.
Oh, dude, yeah.
Plus, I need to go there anyways. So, well, that seals the deal. Then, guess I'm gonna spend more money.
Yeah.
All right.
I often think about when I was a salesman and how good I was at it. I just somehow am able to like convince people just naturally, like, oh man, yeah, this is really good, and then they get hype on it, and then.
Yeah.
It's really true. I have a coffee cup that has all sorts of Jigglypuffs all over him because he was like, oh yeah, you totally need that. so I bought it.
Well, I hope that Kevin can convince people to give us money every month through Patreon, but we'll talk about that
Oh my gosh.
we'll talk about that as we wrap up, which will be in a minute here, because I think it's time for us to give our content scores.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
All right. Well, I gave content a hot, cold, fresh, stale, liquid, solid 9T
Ooh.
Nice.
Up from what?
from 85.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I gave it a 95.
And I also gave it a 95.
High five.
Ooh. High 95.
You have to do the double ooh.
Yeah. So I guess that's it.
Yeah. Bye, everyone. See you next week. No, actually, don't be dumb. We're not going to leave you like that. What we're going to do is go off air for 20,000 minutes and do some quick maths, our slow maths, and figure out our scores. But in the meantime, here's an ad from the Interstate Gamers. Hi, I'm Jason Tate, and I'm Aaron Miller, and we're the Interstate Gamers, and this is a podcast where we drink beer, talk about beer, and answer your questions. All right, that was the ad, I guess. I just did it for them. You're welcome.
You called them the Interstate Gamers.
Did I?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Aaron Miller, and I'm Jason Tate, and we're the Interstate Gamers. Damn it. I just want them to be me so badly. All right. Well, they were the Eastie Boys podcast, and this is an ad that I just wrote for them. Anyway, we're going to pause for a second. We will be right back. You won't know what happened. Hello, and welcome back to the Interstate Gamers. We missed you. It's been a long 20,000 minutes. But we're back with some math that has been done. And before we give the IG score, as usual, we will all recap our individual scores, starting with me. So, for gameplay, I gave Cave Story Plus a 9T. For aesthetics, I gave it an 87.5. That is based on visuals of 90 and audio of 85. And for content, I gave it a 90. So, my overall score is an 89.2. Katie, what about your score?
Okay, so recap. Gameplay, I gave a 93. Aesthetics, I gave an 88. And that was from visuals 82 and audio 94. And content, I gave a 95. So my overall rating was a 92.
Dang.
And to cap it all off, my gameplay was a 90. My visuals was an 83. Audio was a 92, bringing my aesthetics rating to an 87.5. And then my content rating was a 95. That brings my overall to a 90.833 repeating.
Which brings the IG score between the three of us to a 90.7.
Cool.
Which places Cave Story Plus as the number 6 game in the IG rankings. So out of 19 games, Cave Story is number 6. So that's pretty impressive, actually.
That's really impressive.
It's up there.
I'm liking this list of games, man. So glad we do this.
You know, it's crazy because after every episode, we have one more game. Isn't that weird?
I know.
Funny how that works. Well, that's a wrap for Cave Story Plus. I am very glad that we had Katie on the show because it's been a long time coming.
Yeah.
Actually. Katie, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
You know, it's really an honor for me to hear your voice so soon after I leave College Station because I was, or not
Aw.
College Station, East Texas.
Wherever we are.
mysterious void in Texas. Because I wasn't expecting it, so it was a pleasant surprise to hear your voice again and to hear you say such integrous and insightful commentary on Cave Story Plus. Hope to have you again for a future episode.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Well, we'll have you in mind as we plan season 3, which we'll have to do in like a month or so here. So, Kev, that'll be fun. We have to do that. That whole song and dance.
I love that song and dance.
We do like to dance.
It's a banger. But yeah, that's it for this episode. Before we give our actual sign-off TM, I do want to reiterate the Patreon thing, because basically I want everybody to give us money. You can donate, or you can pledge, rather, in increments of $5 a month or $10 a month, each one with some fun little benefits that you can read about on patreon.com/theinterstategamers.
The IG cast.
Sorry, patreon.com/the Eastie Boys. Okay, it's patreon.com/the IGcast. But anyway, I do want to say some of the things we might be using money for, just so that you guys know the cause that you're donating to. Because it is a donation, we don't expect anyone to chip in, but if you want to show your support fiscally, this is a really good way to do it, and we appreciate that. But one main goal, which we've already achieved thanks to our first 2 donors who will be named in a second, we have covered the operating costs of actually hosting our podcast on Simplecast, so thank you guys for that.
Yes.
Beyond that, we could use the money for a whole mess of things, really. I think a priority would be for us to buy more games.
Yes.
Because now that I actually have a modern system for once, buying games is a thing that I can do. And we can also we have some kind of secret projects in the pipeline that I don't really want to talk about just in case they somehow end up dying. I don't want to be responsible for getting people's hopes up, but they will hopefully happen. And if they do happen, then having additional money from Patreon will certainly help with that. So hopefully that convinces you guys to at least consider opening your very large and generous wallets, giving us some of that cold, hard cash. So that's Patreon. And anyway, Kev, do you want to do our normal social handles?
Yeah, you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, Apple Music. I don't know how you found us already, but if you found us,
Good job.
You know where to go. But definitely give us a follow and subscribe if you really like our, content. And leave us a review. We really like looking at those and getting some feedback or some ratings. We like that stuff. We also have a website where we display all these ratings. It's so our normal website that contains our podcast is theigcast.com, and then you can go to games.theigcast.com, and that will get you to the game ratings that we have. I'm working on, for at least by season 3, I'm going to go ahead and promise something like this, a brand new website that should put everything conveniently in one spot for you guys. So that'll be nice if I can get that done.
Handcrafted by your boy K-Slugs for the optimal Interstate Gamers experience.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, we do have to thank, we are legally obligated to thank our Patreon supporters. We have 2 of them at the moment when I last checked, and they are Simon and Seth Webb. Thank you guys so much for being the first of hopefully a very long list of supporters.
Yes.
We certainly appreciate it. Simon, one of these days we will talk about Star Fox. I know that we have already, but we will talk about it again at some point just for you. Hey, maybe on a fan appreciation episode, since that is the thing that we are planning on doing at some point.
And Seth, we will talk about Ocarina of Time.
Oh, has he been hankering for that?
Yeah. You know, the webs, they really want to hear their games.
Simon is the executive producer now. It says so on his Twitter bio.
Yeah.
So really, he can boss us the hell around if he wants to.
True. Shout outs to our executive producer.
Shout outs to our executive producer, Simon Webb, and our executive Ocarina of Time heckler, Seth Webb. Thank you, guys. I guess that's it. Katie, I don't think you're on social media all that much, but if you are, do you want to plug anything or tell us a cool cause to donate to or something?
Oh, I can tell you that the Interstate Gamers have a really cool Instagram that is ran by a really cool person. So
really, I thought I wasn't doing Instagram. Huh. Weird.
Okay.
That was good.
So yeah, check us out, or check the Interstate Gamers out on Instagram.
That's you.
That's me.
That's me.
Well, cool. It was a good episode. We definitely love bringing you this content. Thanks to our 2 patron subscribers. We love you guys, and we'll be back in the next 2 weeks.
Hell yeah. And until next time.
Love you too, guys.
Love you.
Boom diggity.
Boom diggity. Boom diggity. Love you. Cone 10. Bye, Felicia.